The mighty Mississippi River carves through our land and weaves through our history. It's a juggernaut that supports and challenges both man and beast. Minnesota marks the head of the river. But from there down to St. Louis is the Mississippi's heart. It beats to a country rhythm and harbors hidden wonders. Get your blue jeans on. This is a ride down the wild side of the Mississippi River. The Mississippi story begins with a stream, babbling out of Lake Itasca with elegance and grace. As it flows, it grows. Eventually, it leaves the majestic north and enters Middle America, the heart of the country. "674 miles from where it starts, the river bids farewell to Minnesota and becomes a river of islands. Geologists call this the driftless area. It's the only portion of the Mississippi that cuts through a hilly plateau, an isolated section of the upper Midwest that escaped being flattened by Ice Age glaciers. Small towns nestle among the steep banks, while the uninhabited islands harbor wildlife. Each shape-shifting isle is an oasis for aquatic creatures. At least until winter. Temperatures in December drop well below freezing. The driftless area ices over. The islands are no longer isolated. Now, predators, like this coyote, can walk on water and listen for animals hiding beneath the snow. No luck. And now other prey, like this squirrel, know he's here. Small patches of open water are precious escape routes for the panicked. But beware. There's also danger below. This young male American river otter must eat his body weight each week just to stay warm. He'll eat a squirrel if he can. But there's easier food to catch beneath the Mississippi's ice. He can close his ears and nostrils and hold his breath for up to 8 minutes. Otters will swim more than 20 miles a day in search of food. This young male otter finds his way home to a familiar face, his mate. They happily splash in and out of the freezing Mississippi. Oil in their coats provides insulation and maintains their core temperature. The durability of the waterproof pelts has attracted European trappers since the 1700s. Their coats are the gold standard for the fur trade's rating system. Trappers nearly wiped out river otters 2 centuries ago. Now, the aquatic weasels are making a comeback. The female is pregnant. But her body is tuned to wait until the right time. She suspends the development of her 2 unborn young until the spring, when the Mississippi will once again flow free. The river is 2,300 miles long. Every year, it freezes over from Lake Itasca to somewhere around Guttenberg, Iowa, almost a third its length. That includes most of the raised plateau and islands of the driftless area. But this year, a severe winter pushes even farther south. Near Dubuque, Iowa, the islands begin to thin out, but the banks are still steep, and the river remains covered in a thin sheet of ice. It's the scenic route, through areas of changing topography. Soon, forests intersperse with clearings, which is just how some animals like it. Red-tailed hawks hunt in the open areas. This juvenile weathers her first winter near Clinton, Iowa. She still wears her youthful feathers and won't grow her adult plumage until she molts in the spring. Her vision is among the best in the animal kingdom. Each eyeball is bigger than her own brain. Her sight is acute enough to spot a tiny deer mouse from 100 yards away. The mouse doesn't hibernate. He must leave his burrow to collect the seeds, grass, and roots he needs to survive the cold. Colored oils in the hawk's eyes increase contrast and make her prey stand out against its background. She locks on. It's showtime. It's this red-tailed hawk's first winter on the Mississippi River. She must learn fast. To survive the cold, she must make a kill like this every day. Spring on the Mississippi draws near, but the change in season brings a new set of challenges. Winter loosens its grip up near Ferryville, Wisconsin. The Mississippi and its many tributaries begin to thaw and flow. Hundreds of millions of gallons of snow melt begin the journey south. A mosaic of ice. Near Prairie du Chien, the river picks up momentum with added weight. The Wisconsin River funnels water from more than 12,000 square miles into the Mississippi. Floods here are a part of life. In 1829, a young Army colonel rebuilt a flooded fort here on higher ground and stopped it from drowning a fourth time. That man took his ingenuity to Washington and went on to become America's 12th president, Zachary Taylor. When the snow melts, as many as 2 million gallons of water pass through Prairie du Chien every second. The rising water stirs up forest insects and worms. Time for the cleanup crew. Unlike their domestic cousins that grace our Thanksgiving tables, wild turkeys can fly. But right now, all they need is on the ground. The birds fatten up fast on worms, slugs, and grasshoppers, with seeds and berries for dessert. This male, or tom, pushes 25 pounds and may ultimately grow to over 30. That bulk makes this cowboy stand out to the girls. But size is not all that counts. Equally important in attracting a female is style. He wears 6,010 colorful feathers, a beard under his beak, and on top, a 9-inch long mustache called a snood. Impressive, but still not enough. This is a fickle female. He puffs up and shakes a tail feather. This two-step shimmy is called a strut. Finally, he earns her attention. But there are other toms in the troop. One is a challenger. They size each other up. When it's unclear who's the better mate, the turkeys turn violent. A struggle for dominance like this can last for days. Fights can end in death. Victory goes to the reigning tom. He's quick to secure his prize. Hens only need to mate once per season. But the tom now has the opportunity to sow plenty of oats. He not only impressed this female, he won over her entire harem. Each hen will lay around 11 eggs, and 2 months later, their clutches will hatch. With so many hens in the roost, it will soon be a full house. That's when some mothers will take their young and move out to form their own flocks. The Mississippi's journey continues. For nearly 100 miles, the river runs as the border between Iowa on its west bank and Wisconsin, then Illinois on its east. It is deep and wide. Now a major thoroughfare that has long connected north to south. In Rock Island, Illinois, the city's namesake houses the government's largest weapons factory. In 1856, the Rock Island Bridge opened as the first railroad bridge across the Mississippi, connecting east to west. The initial bridge only stood for 15 days before the fastest steamboat on the river accidentally plowed right into it. The very public court battle that followed introduced a new lawyer to the world, Abraham Lincoln. Development along the river was fast and furious. But there are still wild spaces along the Mississippi's banks. Near Savannah, Illinois, a bobcat searches along the river for a den. She's pregnant and will give birth in about a week. Soon, she'll be bound to her den. All her energy will go to producing milk for her young. She must hunt while she can. This squirrel poses a unique challenge. The bobcat is an accomplished climber. But this is no ordinary squirrel. With the right wind, the skin flaps between this flying squirrel's limbs can carry her 150 feet. She's safe for now. The bobcat will have to try elsewhere. The squirrel waits out the danger inside a tree cavity. She has 3 young dependent on her return. They're 8 weeks old, with another 8 to go before they leave the nest and start to glide through the forest themselves. Outside the nest, other animal families also embrace spring. Wood ducks that partnered up in January now prepare to start a family. They need a tree cavity of their own. This one will do nicely. A hole high above the water will provide relative safety from predators and easy access to the Mississippi when the chicks are ready to take to the water. The female lays 14 eggs. For the next month, it'll be her job to keep them warm and safe. The pregnant bobcat has also found a home near the river for her future family. Bobcats often have several dens in their territory, from hollow trees to beaver lodges. The most prized sit underground in rocky crevices. Just a week later, 3 kittens. It'll be 10 days before they open their eyes, but mom's milk is easy to find. They will gain almost half an ounce a day, while mom fasts to stay with them. No such comfort for the future wood ducks. Their mother must venture out every day to eat, leaving the unborn young vulnerable for 30 minutes at a time. Being nestled in a tree doesn't mean they are safe. Along the banks of the Mississippi, a black rat snake is hungry after a harsh winter and desperate for calories. Ridged or keeled scales grip the bark and give him the traction he needs to push upward. With no mother to fend off the snake, it's an open buffet. His jaws unhinge. He can swallow food larger than his head. 130 calories down the hatch. It's a hearty country breakfast. 1 egg, scrambled. This meal will keep him going for a week, but he'll be back for more. The remaining 13 eggs are in a developmental race against time. By late June, 30 days after they were laid, a dozen surviving wood ducks are ready to go where they've never gone before, to the Mississippi River. Even at this young age, after the harrowing departure, they face an entirely new world of dangers. Only about half the ducklings will make it to adulthood. With the arrival of so many new lives along the Mississippi, spring is a good time for predators. With her kittens now 4 weeks old, the mother bobcat returns to the hunt. They won't be weaned for another month, but they're ready to explore a little. While mom's out doing the work, they get their first glimpse of life along the riverbank. This youthful exploring without mom is a big step towards independence. In 4 more months, they'll have to hunt for themselves. The Mississippi will become their caregiver. They'll drink Mississippi water and patrol the river's banks for food. It will be hot work. It's now late summer. As the river flows south into Missouri, temperatures soar. A welcome treat for some well-hidden slow movers. Look carefully. This is a soft-shelled turtle. The Mississippi cloaks it well. Its delicate armor is more like thick skin than bone. That makes it vulnerable to attack, but also lighter and more flexible. It buys this turtle an advantage: speed. It can reach 15 miles an hour. But it's still a turtle. In the water, he can use his nose like a snorkel to breathe for days at a time. If necessary, he can stay completely submerged for up to 5 hours by absorbing the oxygen in the water through his skin. Juveniles like this need maximum protein and are entirely carnivorous. By holding still, he hopes to ambush a passing fish. Little does he know that just downstream in central Illinois, catching dinner is like shooting fish in a barrel. These are Asian carp. Fish farmers imported carp in the 70s to clean ponds, and they escaped. They have since spread to 31 states, outcompeting native species for habitat. The tiny town of Bath, Illinois, sits on a tributary that feeds the Mississippi. Here, fishermen prepare for battle, a fist-to-fin fight for the watershed. It's called the Original Redneck Fishing Tournament. For 2 days every year, hundreds gather to face off against invasive Asian carp. It's not your typical tournament. All it takes is a good sturdy net, a good old sense of fun, and plenty of horsepower. The sound of rumbling engines triggers a defense mechanism in the carp's tiny brain, resulting in this. Residents of Bath, Illinois lead the assault against Asian carp invading the Mississippi watershed. The fish hurl themselves en masse out of the water, away from the sound of approaching boats. Heads up, folks. Black eyes, broken bones, complete knockouts. All standard event hazards. Taking part is a rite of passage. They'll catch more than 2,000 Asian carp this weekend. But there'll be no fish fry. They're only considered good as fertilizer or cat food. The people of Bath do the Mississippi a service. But this is just a drop in the bucket. In some places, the invaders double in number every year. This will be a long war. Americans have a special relationship with the Mississippi River. It moves us. It feeds us. And it helps define our heritage. Nowhere is this more evident than Hannibal, Missouri, the birthplace of Mark Twain. The river was his muse, the setting for his adventures of Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer. As an author, he helped shape the Mississippi's legacy. It will always have its own way, he said. No engineering skills can persuade it to do otherwise. Twain was also a steamboat captain. He helped ferry goods to ports farther south. Even today, 60% of the nation's grain exports travel down the river. And no year is complete without the fall harvest. Farmers south of Hannibal bring in their crops and send field mice and other rodents scurrying to the riverbanks for cover. Even there, predators await. Animals must fatten up for winter, while there's still food to be had. But time spent foraging leaves them vulnerable. No rodent is safe, neither day nor night. A deer mouse uses the cover of darkness to search for snails and earthworms along the banks of the Mississippi. It uses its acute sense of smell to pinpoint food in the damp soil and stock up for winter. A silent assassin watches its every move. A great horned owl. This lethal aerial hunter has the most diverse diet of any owl. He is able to kill other raptors and will even take out a porcupine. Camouflage feathers make him virtually invisible from below. His facial disc funnels sound right to his ears. He can hear a mouse from 75 feet away. His eyes are built for night vision. So large, they can't move back and forth like human eyes. Instead, he silently turns his head up to 270 degrees. Patience pays off. He can reach 40 miles per hour, but he doesn't rely on speed. He's the master of the surprise attack. His flight is silent. By the time the mouse sees him, it's already too late. He can kill half a dozen rodents in a single night. Great horned owls patrol the entire length of the Mississippi River, hunting rodents along its headwaters, its heartland, and the bayou. The river leaves northern Missouri, then 1,170 miles from where it started at Lake Itasca, it reaches St. Louis. This is where Lewis and Clark began their famous expedition west on May 14, 1804. The human footprint here is firm and in control, but not so fast. From St. Louis to the Gulf of Mexico, the Mississippi plays a different tune. One with drama and danger. We've tracked this river from its head and examined its heart. Now, time for its soul. Prepare for a journey with deep water, deep trouble, and into the deep South.